Hi everybody, we're going to be talking about the physics 2D section. But before we do, I just want to say I got this website up. It's robustgames.com. I'll leave a link down in the descriptions. Just check it out. I'm going to be giving away some free stuff, scripts, sprites, models, music, and more. I'm going to try to keep you updated with the new YouTube videos, new tutorials, any games that I make or that we make together as a community. So I'm going to be giving up free scripts, sprites, models, music, and more. As you can see, I already have a couple free assets. So if you go up here to the free assets, you can see right here I got sprites. So these are all the sprites that you could download. There's scripts or codes right here. For now, I just have this spawner script. I got a slow motion script, a move towards script, and an enemy script. So the spawner script, it's as it suggests, it just spawns objects, slow motion. When you hit a certain collider or trigger, it will slow time down. Move towards. So if you want an object or an enemy to move towards a certain person or character or different object, you could put this script on that object. And the enemy script, if you have an enemy that you want to inflict damage when you press down on it with the mouse button, there's this script as well. So all you have to do is click download. It will download it for you. If you click download, you can see that it downloads it for you. And also you could, for these, you would have to click download. You would get this image up. Just right click, save image as, and then save it to wherever you want to, and it will start the download process. So if I save image as and then I save it, you can see it downloaded. So check out the website. I'm gonna be adding more stuff. As of now, it just has scripts and sprites, but like I said, I'm gonna be adding models and different other assets. So keep coming back to this. Subscribe if you want to. You can subscribe down here if you want to hear from us about updates or any free assets that we make for your games. So now we're gonna go back to the scene, and on the scene we just got this ball on this ground. So if we go to the physics and we go to add component, we go to physics 2D. We're actually gonna make an empty game object. So let's just go create empty. We're gonna name this arrow, and then we're gonna add a sprite renderer. And this is just so you guys could kind of get an idea. Arrow. You rotate this 9 degrees. Let's make this a little bigger. And then we could just move it over. And then I'll duplicate this 2 times. Just so you guys could kind of get a visual of what I'm doing. But this is really not necessary. I'm going to create another empty game object. Just name it arrows. And drag all these 3 in here. That way I could just move this, and it'll move it all together. So when I have this, I'm gonna go to add component. I'm gonna go to physics 2D. Then I'm gonna go to the area effector 2D. Now area effector, it's gonna ask for a collider. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna go to physics again, and we're gonna go to the second one, since that's the next one I'm gonna talk about, the box collider 2D. So to edit the collider, you just click here, and you could just move it around however you want. I'll talk about this box collider in a minute. I want to talk about the area effector first. That way I don't forget about it. So the area effector, as you can see, it says it has to have a 2D collider, and it has to have the used by effector checked on. So we're going to check this used by effector. Now this is complaining, saying that it needs to have the trigger is trigger checked. So we'll check that, and now we don't have no warnings. So everything's working. Now, use collider mask. If we have this unchecked, it's going to use global collisions. If we have this checked on, it's going to use these collisions right here. So we could have it collide with everything or nothing, or we could add a different layer right here. So let's say we could have a player or ball, just to show you guys real quick. Now if I go over here, we have player and ball. And if we go to the area effector, we also have player and ball now. Now if we don't want it to affect the player, we just click that and it won't affect it, but we're just going to click everything for now. Force, we could have it use the global angle or the local angle. For now we'll just use the local angle, and then the force angle, This is a little tricky, but I'll show you how it works. So if you put 45, which is 45 degrees, it's gonna go to the right. So for now, I'll show you real quick. It says the force target you could have between a rigid body and a collider. Our ball doesn't have either of those, so let's make sure we add both of them real quick. So I'm gonna add a circle collider since this is a circle. The ball is pretty much a circle. We're just gonna roughly shape it to the ball, and then we're gonna add a rigid body. Now what a rigid body does, just to explain it real quick, I'm gonna explain it later in the video, probably in a separate video, is that a rigid body gives an object gravity, so it allows the object to fall down or move around or whatever. So let's say I remove this and I hit play. What the ball is going to do is just going to stay still. It's not going to fall down. It's not going to move. Nothing's going to happen with the ball because it does not have a rigid body. So now let me add this rigid body, 2D. And then since I have this area effector and the force angle at 45, what it's going to do is going to push the ball to the right. So the rigid body is going to make the ball fall. The area effector is going to push it to the right. So, whoa, I did something wrong there. Hold on. So the ground, I'm also going to add a box collider so it does not fall through the ground. And I'm just going to move it down like that. And then the arrows, 45, everything. Does the ball have a rigid body? Yes, it does. So it should work. Let's see one more time. So now when it falls, it should get pushed to the right. So as you can see, it got pushed to the right, barely, but it did. So let me bump it up a bit so you guys could see it even more. Let me go to 50. So as you can see, I barely moved it to the right, almost like this ground was leaning at an angle. So now you're gonna see it pushes it to the right. So now if we have this at 0, we'll see what it does. As you can see, it goes to the right as well. If you have it at 359.9, which is the maximum, or 359.9999, it will do the same thing. It will just go to the right. Now, let's say we have this at 90. It should push the ball upwards towards us, or upwards towards the sky. So as you can see, it'll just keep doing that over and over. Now, if we add some variation, and we pause it, play it, as you can see, it really don't do much. Now, if we put this at 270, it should fall straight down if I'm correct. There you go. And then if we put this at 180, it should go to the left. So we go to 180, and then let me bring the ball up real quick. Hit play, and it pushes it to the left. So yeah, that's pretty much the area effector. It also has the force variation, which if we hover over it, it says right here, it adds a magnitude of force to be applied. If the variation is negative, then the force will be randomly reduced. So magnitude is just the force, the actual force, how strong it is. Force target, if you want to target rigid bodies or just colliders. So this actually doesn't have to have a rigid body. But if it doesn't have the rigid body, it won't fall. So, you pretty much have to have that. The drag, this just makes it have more of a floaty effect. So let me go to, 45 I think, to the right. And now it won't get pushed as force or as hard. It'll have, see that floaty effect. And that's pretty much what drag is. Angular drag is the same thing, but when it goes in an angle or when it's, rotating. And that's the area effector. Now for the box collider. The box collider, you could, like I said, you could click here and edit the colliders. These are the colliders. So whatever hits this object that also has a collider. Okay, let me go back. For two objects to collide with each other, one of them has to have a rigid body, and both of them have to have box colliders. So my ball has a rigid body. They both have box colliders. Right now it's a trigger. So let me turn this off. Right now it's a trigger, but if I set it to non-trigger, when my ball hits this collider, it will just fall like if it was the floor. So if you can see right here, as you can see, it just falls like if it's the ground. Now if it's a trigger, this is useful for when you're coding, that when something goes past this collider or through the collider, it triggers something. So you would have to have this on. Used by Effector. If you have effectors like this area effector 2D, you have to have this checked on. If you don't, you don't need it. Now there's also used by composite. Now used by composite is a little different. I'll show you right here a little better. Let me remove these. So if I go to the box collider 2D, I use by composite, it's gonna ask for a composite collider. So I go to composite, or I could go to the physics 2D and then go to the composite collider 2D, and it's gonna add a rigid body for me, and it's also gonna add this composite. So the composite, what I could do is I could have it by the outlines or the polygons, depending on what I want it to be, and then I could have it synchronized or manually. So I could change the actual vertex distance, the offset, and the edge radius. Same thing when it's synchronized. As you can see, all these changed. So if we change these values right here, you can see that right now it has this square, but I could change it and it starts changing the shape. As you can see, I could change the shape. I could add an edge to it. And I could do a whole bunch of other stuff with this composite collider. So this is useful if you have more complicated sprites, and that way you don't have to draw so much memory using so much colliders. Instead, you could use this composite collider, and you could do what I was just doing. If we go over here to these assets, now these assets I downloaded from the asset store. It's called 100 Alchemy item icons for free from ARISAN. ARISAN. Hopefully I didn't butcher that name too much. But check it out. The file size is just 1.3 megabytes, which is always nice. And it has 100 icons, as I mentioned. So if we go to, where is it? There's a feather, lavender feather, and then we add that box collider, and we also add that composite collider, and we of course use by composite, and then we change it to, there's a way that I did it earlier where I got it to fit the actual feather. There's a box collider, used by composite. Well, anyways, this outline section, well, I'll talk about this later, but this outline section is supposed to outline this whole sprite. For some reason, it's not reading it well, but anyways, that's what used by composite is. Now we're going to keep going with the rest of these. Auto tiling. So you can have auto tiling checked on, and it will update automatically based on the tiling. And then there's offset. So if you want to move the actual collider offset, you can move it like this, or you could just move it like this, whatever you find is easier. And then the size, you could change the size right here, and then the edge radius. So if you wanted to have an edge radius, you could change it right there. And then the info, this is just for debugging purposes, but you can see if there's an attached rigid body. Right now we don't have any. You can see the frictionness, the bounciness, all that if we had the rigid body 2D connected. So like if we have let's say rigid body 2D, we can see that the ball rigid body 2D is connected. Right now we don't have no physics material, so the bounciness and everything is set to the default numbers. But if we go to create, go to 2D, and we add a physics material 2D, we just ball, so it's for the ball, and we add a bounciness of 1, and we add it to this actual physics. Now you can see the bounciness is 1, and if we decide to change this to 0, you can see it updates. Well, it's supposed to update as well. Did it? Well, it didn't update, but that's pretty much what that is. You could also add it to here, and it changes the frictionness of the collider here. And yeah, that's pretty much it for these colliders. Now let me remove all these. Now after the colliders, we'll go back to Physics 2D. Now buoyancy effector. Let me check if we got time. Okay, actually we don't have time. This was actually a pretty long video. So in the next video, I will cover the Physics 2D section of buoyancy effector, capsule collider, circle collider, and the rest of these. But pretty much of all these colliders are pretty much all the same, but I will still cover them. So just stay tuned for the next video. If you're liking these videos, if they helped you out in any way, hit that like button. For more videos like this, hit that subscribe button. Thank you once again.